Let's talk about a situation that almost everyone runs into at some point or the other, a toxic coworker. And before we jump straight into how to handle them, we're going to start with a question that's a little uncomfortable but really important. What is a toxic coworker, and is that coworker you? Yeah, that's the part that usually want to skip. But it matters, because if you're focused on fixing someone else while you're accidentally bringing the same energy, nothing changes. So today we're doing both: how to spot toxic patterns and how to cope when you're stuck working alongside of them. Let's define what we mean here. We're not talking about someone having a bad day or being stressed or even being awkward. We're talking about repeated behavior that drains the room, the kind of person who leaves a trail of tension behind them. And one big red flag is this: you're the victim in every single situation, every conflict, every misunderstanding, every decision that doesn't go their way somehow becomes proof that they're being targeted. Right. And along with that, they treat everything like a crisis. Not, hey, that was frustrating, but that's a disaster. This is unfair, and this is unbelievable, and everyone needs to hear about it immediately. Another sign is what I call emotional broadcasting. They can't handle something small without making sure the entire area knows exactly how affected they are. That's like the event isn't real unless there's an audience. And the story tends to stay the same. Nothing is fair to them. Rules don't apply to them. Feedback is an attack. Boundaries are rude. And if you're not actively comforting them or centering them, they may start treating you like the enemy. There's also the boundary problem. They don't mind their business. They bring you into drama that has nothing to do with you, and you're expected to take a side. And if you don't, they act like you betrayed them. Let's talk about a super specific version of this. The coworker who basically lives in the hallway, wandering, popping into offices uninvited, interrupting people with something that's either not urgent or not appropriate. And somehow it always turns into their issue of the day. And if you don't respond the way they want, they get bothered, like you owe them sympathy on demand. And if you don't feel bad for them, or if you don't react strongly enough, they take it personally. So the big question: what do you do if you work with this person? Because quitting isn't always an option, and confronting them directly can backfire depending on the environment. The first strategy is simple but powerful: reduce exposure. Minimize the amount of time you spend in their space. That could mean closing your door, wearing headphones when appropriate, staying focused when they try to pull you into side conversations, or choosing a different spot for breaks if you can. And this part is key. You're not doing it to be mean. You're doing it because emotional chaos is contagious. The less time you spend in it, the less it affects your nervous system, your mood, and your ability to do your job. Second strategy: validate without joining. This is a skill, because some people hear validation and they think it means agreeing or endorsing the behavior. It doesn't. Validation can sound like, that sounds really frustrating, or I can see that this is stressing you out. But notice what you did not say. You didn't say, yeah, everyone's out to get you. You didn't say, you're totally right, and blow this up. You're acknowledging the emotion and you're not fueling the fire. Which brings us to the strategy number 3. Don't over-respond. Toxic dynamics often thrive on big reactions. When you match their intensity, they learn that the fastest way to get attention, power, and control is to escalate. So you keep your response calm and proportionate, short, polite, steady. You don't have to debate. You don't have to prove to them that they're wrong. You don't have to become their therapist. Because here's the hard truth: most of the time, you can't change them. People like this often have an inner struggle going on, sometimes a long history of trauma, and sometimes untreated mental health issues, sometimes just patterns they've never been able to overcome. And they might genuinely need professional support, a therapist, maybe even a psychiatrist. But you need to be very careful in this area. Workplaces have policies and people have pride. Suggesting mental health support can go badly and the person is easily offended, or if it could be viewed as inappropriate. Also, this is important. Even if it's true, they may not be ready to hear it. And if they aren't ready, you suggesting it won't magically make them ready. It might just make you their new villain. So your goal isn't to diagnose them, and it isn't to fix them. The goal is to cope effectively so that you can do your job, protect your peace, and keep your professional reputation intact. So now let's flip it. What if you're listening and thinking, wait, this sounds kind of familiar? Not in a judgmental way, but in an honest way. If you're worried you might be the difficult coworker, the first step is awareness. Look at how people respond to you. When you walk into a room, do conversations stop? Do people suddenly get busy? Do they change the subject quickly? Have you heard whispers that you're intense, you're dramatic, or you don't respect boundaries? And be real with yourself. Do you ever say things like, I know I'm a jerk. I know I'm kind of a bitch, but I just don't care. Because you're saying that you do care on some level, you might not know how to change. Or maybe you learned a long time ago that being loud, reactive, or always on guard was how you stayed safe. And if that's you, you're not doomed. But you do have responsibility. Therapy isn't just for people who are falling apart. Therapy is for people who want to understand why they react the way that they react and how to show up better. Sometimes the biggest shift is simply admitting I might be a part of the problem, or I am the problem. And that's not shame, that's power. Because once you can see your pattern, you can start to change it. So let's leave listeners with a few grounded takeaways. If you work with a toxic coworker, reduce exposure, validate without agreeing, keep your reactions measured, and remember you're not responsible for repairing their inner world. And if you suspect you might be the one creating tension, pay attention to feedback, direct or indirect. Notice how people respond around you and consider getting support, not because you're broken, but because you deserve healthier relationships in a workplace that doesn't feel like a battlefield. Work is hard enough without emotional chaos on top of it. You can't control other people, but you can control your boundaries, your responses, and the kind of coworkers you choose to be. That's the episode. If this topic hit close to home, you're not alone. Take the small step this week. One boundary, one calmer response, one